our debaters for the evening, YB Khairy Jamaluddin and Ambiga Sreenevasan are already making their way towards the hall. You will all please kindly take a seat. We will begin very shortly. Thank you. My name is Najib, news editor of the Malay Mail and your host for the evening. I bid you a warm welcome. To the Malay Mail Start the Debate series. A series which features Malaysians in the spotlight address issues which dominate the news pages and have captured the public's attention. Political scene and civil liberties movement, and certainly no strangers in the news pages. In just a moment, Rembau Member of Parliament and Umno Youth Chief Khairy Jamaluddin will face off with Bersih 3.0 co-chairperson and former Bar Council President Ambiga Sreenevasan. Your speakers will square off and tackle the thorny issue titled Electoral Reform. Is enough being done? But before we proceed, let's go through a few house rules for members of the audience. Right? Now please switch off your cell phones or keep it on silent mode. We also request that you refrain from exiting the hall when the debate is in session. Thank you. On another note, I would like to ask the audience to join me in welcoming Rembau Group CEO, Datuk Siu Kawai, and Bukit Utama City Corporation Director, Datuk C.K. Teo, both of whom have been invaluable in helping us put this event together. Let's give them a big hand. And without further ado, I would now like to invite the Malay Mail Managing Editor, Mr. Terence Fernandez, to share a few words. A round of applause, please, for Terence.
Thanks, Ange. Thank you very much. Wow, 1,000 potential subscribers to the Malay Mail. We won't let you leave until you fill out the subscription forms outside. Okay, I'm going to make this painless as possible. As in every wedding, normally they allow the party who paid for most of it to say a few words. So, I'd like to say, on behalf of my friends here at the Malay Mail and Redberry, and of course Ambiga and Khairy, thank you all for coming tonight. We're all friends tonight. I'm not going to go through the usual salutations of the good evening, Datuk Tan Sri, because tonight I'm just going to say good evening, friends. Good evening, friends. I just do this to emphasize that despite the seriousness of tonight's topic, we will all leave here later enlightened by new perspectives, charmed by the unexpected candor and openness of strangers, and with the understanding that, as in any marriage and any family, we can all agree to disagree but still live under one roof. You can applaud. Now, electoral reforms have been an issue that has been around from even the early days of Merdeka. We are still very much a young democracy, and by this, we are still a work in progress. At the end of the day, we are all stakeholders. We may have different ways of expressing our views, but we all do care at them. Now, Khairy and Ambiga, at the end of the day, they too are stakeholders who are as passionate about this country as each of us are. They may have different views on how to move us forward in various matters, including initiatives in enhancing our democratic processes, a cause that both of them are committed to. Thank you both, Khairy, thank you Ambiga, for agreeing to start in the Malay Mail Spark the Debate too. It's our second forum in helping to enhance and promote thought and public discourse in a civilized, open forum. True to our new tagline of Rethink the News, the new Malay Mail wants to be an avenue to discuss issues of national importance. Our agenda, since we launched on January 30th, is to spark debate. And I believe we have in our news pages, and now we are taking that mandate to a different level. I'd like to take this opportunity to say thank you to Rahman Dahlan and Tony, both who wanted to be here today but had to serve their constituencies. They participated in our first discourse on April 4th, and I'd like to thank them. We would like to thank them for setting the ball rolling for this series. Thank you to our partner UCSI, who helped us with the groundwork and also in the overview which Dr. Sean Tan is going to present. And also to Yayasan Orator, our new friends, who have come on board for the first time. Dato' Sigit Teo, thank you for responding to my SOS, although you were in Shanghai. Thank you for your support and providing this magnificent venue, as well as the assistance of your wonderful staff at the club. I have to say that we were turned away by many venue providers, including 5-star hotels and convention centers, who were uncomfortable with the subject matter. I think they probably had forgotten that they too are stakeholders in this country. But never mind. Thanks, Atul. And finally, thank you, dear audience and subscribers of the Malay Mail. Those who wrote in, those who walked in, those who called, those who who are standing at the back. Thank you so much for being here tonight, for supporting this cause and stating your claim as Malaysians who care a damn, just like Khairy and Ambiga over here. Thank you.
Good evening, friends. Alright, I know that none of you came here to listen to me speak, so I'll try to keep this short and sweet so that we can all get down to the main business of the night. Okay? I was asked to do a short little intro for the debate today, basically to set the scene and to maybe update some of you on some recent developments in relation to electoral reforms. I've chosen to do it by running through the 8 demands of Bersih, as well as the government's response in relation to each of these demands, whether it's the judiciary, the executive, the legislative, or even the EC. Alright, so we'll start with the first demand, which is for clean electoral roll. Alright, Bersih claims that the electoral roll is marred with irregularities, such as deceased persons and multiple persons registered under a single address, or even a non-existent address. Now, MERAP, which is a independent project done recently to study the electoral roll, claims that there are even up to 400,000 possible voters of dubious status. Now, the EC chairman's response is he claims that we have the cleanest electoral roll in the world, and only 0.16% of the roll in Selangor might be doubtful. But the EC, of course, claims that they will continue to work with other agencies, relevant agencies, that cleaning up the electoral roll is a continuous process. It's not something that they will stop doing. The PSC also recommended that the electoral roll needs to be cleaned up, and they actually recommended that the EC that the cleanup should be supervised and scrutinized by an independent committee. However, this has been rejected by the EC. Essentially because the EC is an independent body and they feel that the EC should not be subject to any independent scrutiny or supervision. Alright. So the second demand is to reform the postal ballot. Bersih essentially asks that all Malaysians, regardless of where they stay, regardless of where they are residing, to be given the right to vote and to given the right to exercise, given the opportunity to exercise that right. This doesn't just mean those Malaysians who are living overseas, but also those who are living in Malaysia, but maybe outstation. Maybe Sabahans or Sarawakians who are working in Peninsular Malaysia, it might be possible to give them a chance to vote by post. Now, that suggestion was also suggested by the PSC. That was to allow Sabahans and Sarawakians who are residing in Peninsula to vote by post instead of having to fly back to vote. Unfortunately, sorry, is there a commotion? Okay, the EC has agreed. The EC has agreed to allow registered voters residing overseas the postal vote. However, they just agreed on it. They didn't actually say a timeline. Just agreed. And they are currently studying a mechanism to add in media personnel as postal voters as well. However, in relation to the voters from Sabah and Sarawak who are residing in Peninsula Malaysia, the EC has suggested that they should vote where they reside. Now, the third demand is to use indelible ink. Bersih demands that indelible ink must be used in all elections because it's a safe, simple, affordable and effective solution in preventing voter fraud. The EC has totally agreed to implement the use of indelible ink. Alright, and in fact, in time for the general election. However, recently, Section 26, Paragraph 1E of the Elections Offences Act has been amended, and that section has been deleted, which essentially previously allowed checking of the identity of the person entering a polling center. But now that can no longer be done. So, although the indelible ink is used, we can't really check it easily. The fourth demand is a 21-day campaign period. Bersih asked that this be provided so that people can make a more informed decision. And the EC has agreed to implement a minimum 10-day campaign period. The fifth demand is for free and fair access to media. Bersih asked that all media agencies, especially state-funded ones, to allocate proportional and objective coverage for all political parties. And the EC has agreed to work with all relevant parties to provide fair and equal access to media. Now, the sixth point is to strengthen public institutions. Bersih has demanded that public institutions must act impartially, independently in upholding the rule of law and democracy, and that the law provides for sufficient powers to institute a credible system. The PSC also suggested that the EC be restructured along with relevant legal powers to strengthen the EC. Now, the EC also agrees that strengthening the EC is important and has even discussed with JPA to increase the head count. Number 7, which is the demand to stop corruption. The Bersih claims that the Rakyat demands for an end to all forms of corruption and that action should be taken against all allegations of corruption, including vote buying. EC claims to have no powers to act, whereas the PM has also asked under Pemandu to institute a new system to monitor political financing under the Corruption and KRA. And last but not least, the 8th demand, which is to stop dirty politics. Bersih demands that parties and politicians should end dirty politics and that citizens need policies, not dirty politics. The recent amendment to the Election Offences Act, Section 11C, has been deleted, which had originally required print materials to have the names and addresses of printers and publishers. So it's gone now. So now anyone can put up racist, defamatory or sexist posters anonymously. So that's all that I have to say. I guess that's long enough, right? So I'll pass the floor back to them.
And now, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to introduce you to the man who has the unenviable task of keeping our two fierce competitors in check. I present to you tonight's moderator, the CEO of Yayasan Orator, Muhammad Yunus Zakaria. Give him a big hand, please. Thank you.
Young ladies and gentlemen, good evening and welcome to the second series of Spark the Debate, organized to you by the Malay Mail. Before we start, just a few pleasant reminders. Number 1, handphone off or silent. Number 2, please refrain yourself from leaving the hall in the middle of the speeches of any of the speakers. Number 3, please refrain yourself from clapping your hands or cheering in the middle of the speeches. And fourthly, ladies and gentlemen, we are giving the opportunity for not all, but selected members of the audience to ask questions. So if you get that opportunity to ask questions, please make it as short as possible. I'm thinking around 15 to 30 seconds. So you don't, I'm really not giving you the opportunity to tell a little bit about yourself or what you do, just straight questions. Alright? So before we kick off the debate, I would like to invite both our speakers to make peace and shake hands. And you may take your positions at the podium. So not to waste any of our time, I'd like to invite Dato' Ambiga to kick off the debate. Please welcome Dato'.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much to the Malay Mail for having us here. Ladies and gentlemen, I'll get straight to it. In a Mandarin talk show recently, the Prime Minister vowed to hold clean and fair elections. He said, I'd like to repeat it once more, that we will not want to be elected on the basis that we have rigged the elections or manipulated the election. We want the people to show their support in a fair and clean manner. Ladies and gentlemen, Bersih too wants what the Prime Minister says he wants. But in our view, neither the Prime Minister nor Bersih too is going to get their wish in the 13th general elections. I'll tell you why. I can't touch on all the 8 demands because of a lack of time, but let me tell you about our electoral roll. That's the first demand that was referred to. Dr. Ong Kian Ming, a respected academic, has recently been involved. I think the project was mentioned, the Merak project, which is a study into the Malaysian electoral roll. Now, his research took 3 part-time researchers 3 months to compile. What he uncovered is just the tip of the iceberg. He wrote an article, or 2 articles in Malaysia Kini, uncovering 10 things wrong with the electoral roll. Let me just highlight 2 or 3. 1. Voters above 85 years old. Now, an analysis of the third quarter of the 2011, third quarter is last year's third quarter of 2011 electoral rolls, revealed 65,543 voters who were aged 85 and older. In addition, more than 1,000 voters listed at 100 years old and above. 19 voters were born before 1900. As Kian Ming said yesterday, we have clearly an excellent healthcare system. But the area of concern here is that the ICs of dead voters can be used by others to cast a vote on their behalf. Secondly, he found inconsistencies in the gender indicated by the IC number and EC data. This is something that was also raised in the minority report of the PSE. Now, an analysis of the third quarter 2011 electoral roll found 15,855 voters whose IC numbers indicate a different gender from that listed by EC. Among these, there were 72 bin, son of, who are listed as female, and 76 binti, who are listed as male. Now, what does this show? A possibility that a person of a different gender could have used these ICs to register themselves as voters. That's the danger. Thirdly, voters who have IC addresses with the date of birth as 7X. These indicate that they're born overseas. Now, as you know, there's much speculation that non-Malaysians have been given citizenship and hence voting right in order to have them vote for the ruling government. Now, this study showed 167,000 ICs with the state of origin digits as 7X. In the third quarter 2011 electoral roll. You also have instances of spouses of the army or police voters who are of the same gender. Alright? So you have spouses of army police who are of the same gender, same-sex marriages, appears to be same-sex marriages, were identified. Now, the cases highlighted, I've just pointed out 4. The cases highlighted under the 10 categories that he looked at, and please go and read his paper, they do not include, they're not exhaustive. They cover 100,000 cases, okay? Those 100,000 do not include the 42,000 that the EC chief is talking about. And these 42,000 voters, as you know, whose details were unclear or could not be found in the NRD database. Now recently, Dr. Ong did another piece of research, and it showed this. 3.1 million voters whose IC addresses shows a different voting constituency from the constituency in which the voter is actually voting in, i.e. the IC shows one address, but they are voting in a different constituency. Don't confuse this with people whose IC shows a different address from where they live, because people move. So that's possible. This is different. This is someone's IC address saying they should be in A constituency, but they have been voting in B constituency. Now, there is also 65,455 foreigners who are on the electoral roll. He also found 106,743 cases of deletions, 6,762 cases of additions without public display to the electoral roll from the 4th quarter 2010 to 3rd quarter 2011. Now, the presence of the 3.1 million voters whose IC addresses do not correspond to their voting constituencies is very troubling, because let me tell you, this information was given to the SPR by JPN in the year 2002, and the EC has done nothing about it. You see, prior to 2002, people used to register to vote just by using electric bill, etc. They didn't use their IC. Then subsequent to that, they introduced the system where you had to show your IC. So JPN actually gave these figures to the EC. They have failed to act. Now the problem with that is it's a contravention of Article 1191B of the Federal Constitution, which says a voter must be resident in the constituency in which he is voting. Right, I'm going to move on because I don't have much time. But let me tell you, there were also 65,000 foreigners that were found in the electoral roll, and also people who have been removed or added without the roll being displayed. The failure of SPR to take any action in this really leaves a lot of doubt as to whether they are actually doing this cleaning they say they're doing every day. So the preliminary findings of MERAP shows that we have something to worry about in the electoral roll. Now let me, what I'm concerned about is that what EC seems to be pushing and giving the impression is that there are only 42,000 doubtful voters. What I've told you just now is more than 3 million. And don't forget, when they downplayed 42,000, they kept saying it's a small number. You remember that? They said it's 3% nothing. Now that's a highly irresponsible statement to make, because given the way elections run in this country, the margins between winning and losing have been very, very small. So, and in fact, Dr. Wang Chunhuat recently did a study, and he said you could knock over the state government of Selangor with 42,000 votes. So it is not a small matter. Now, our quarrel with the PSC on this is that they didn't even scratch the surface when they looked at what was wrong with the electoral roll. This man with experts took 3 months to uncover this. Now, postal voters is another issue. The issue with postal voters, oh yes, one more thing about the EC in relation to these other issues. They never raised them with the PSC. I would have thought that the EC had a duty of full disclosure to the PSC as to what was wrong with the electoral roll. But it appears that they only answered questions if someone found some errors. So the public were bringing forward cases, and then the EC would answer. So to me, that's not good enough. That's not proactive enough. Now, postal voters, another big issue. The issue with postal voters is this. It is vulnerable to election rigging. Postal voters either send postal ballots or they take them home. Now they have been sent via the military chain of command and allowing them to be intercepted and fraudulently misused. Let me tell you, these votes armed forces, postal voters, for example, have had to mark their ballot papers in front of their military superiors, for example, and they are in fear that they have to vote for the ruling party. There have been cases or reports of ballots being sold. That's the problem with postal voters. They're given away or sold. Some army personnel revealed last year that they had been instructed to vote for thousands of their colleagues. There's a YouTube, it's on YouTube, by the way, I don't know whether you all recall that. In the Cebu by-election, it was by postal votes. The postal votes is what made the difference. Most shockingly, 39 postal ballots more were returned than those issued. Lembah Pantai, Nurul's constituency. In a short period of time now, military and police voters have increased from 169 to 2,101. Her winning margin was 2,805. A few more and she can be knocked over by postal votes. Now, we are concerned that the PSC did not study this issue of security. We raised it. And let me tell you, everybody knows that postal votes is a problem. So our quarrel with the PSC report on the issue of postal votes is that they didn't study the issue of security. I know they have suggested advanced voting. We've agreed with that. But to date, we haven't seen any regulation before Parliament laid by the EC in relation to this. Now, last point before I stop, overseas voters. More than 1 million are disenfranchised. The PSC accepted the problem was logistics. Now, how can we deprive people of their right to vote because of logistics? On the 25th of August 2011, the chairman of the EC announced that overseas voters could vote. He backtracked very soon after that. Yes. So I will stop there. I think as far as overseas voters are concerned, we have more than 1 million who are presently disenfranchised. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, Dato'. Vijay, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Salam sejahtera, salam sejahtera Malaysia. Thank you very much, Mr. Moderator, Dato' Ambiga. As all of you know, I've come here today because Dato' Ambiga and I share concern for electoral reforms. And we are also bound by something much more special than that. And that was we were tear gassed by the same police force on the same day last year. And that creates a bond of friendship that cannot be broken. But ladies and gentlemen, I've come here today as well to tell you that I take a different perspective from Dato' Ambiga. What I'm trying to tell you here tonight is that her decision to go ahead with Bersih 3.0 on Saturday is something that is preempting the reforms that is taking place. Something that is prejudicial in terms of the reforms that's taking place. And misrepresenting the reasons why you are going to go out on Saturday for Bersih 3.0. Before I start, I just want to reiterate what she said. For me, just like the Prime Minister, I hold to one principle, just like all my colleagues in Barisan Nasional. We hold to the principle that the next general elections must be the freest and the fairest in the country's history. We hold to the principle that the winner of the next general election must win with honor and the loser must lose with dignity. That means a fair, a level playing field, a fair election. Please, I know you support me, but please don't waste my time. Ladies and gentlemen, I would put it to you, unlike Dato' Ambiga, that out of 8 of the demands, original demands of Bersih 2.0, 7 of them have been met or are being addressed following from the PSC recommendations. Electoral roll is being cleaned up, reform of postal voting is taking place, use of indelible ink has been agreed upon. The only thing is minimum campaign period. We put 10 days and not 21 days. Free and fair access to the media. I can tell you tonight, Dato' Ambiga, as a Barisan Nasional Member of Parliament and as Ketua Pemuda, the Chief of Umno Youth and Barisan Nasional Youth, I support all parties have the same amount of time on all national media, RTM, TV3, mainstream media, to tell the rakyat their policy platform and also their manifesto. Let's be fair about that. 6, strengthening public institutions, many reform initiatives within the PSC recommendation. 7, stopping corruption. We're supposed to sit down with the opposition within 3 months to discuss a code of conduct for governments what they can and cannot do after Parliament is dissolved and after the state assemblies are dissolved, and to stop dirty politics. That's something that we can all agree upon. So 7 out of 8. And many of the recommendations by the PSC, the Parliamentary Select Committee, are time-bound. 45 days to clear up the 70 to 80,000 names, of which there are more than 50 voters in a single address. 3 months to discuss the code of conduct. 3 months to look into a system for overseas voting. So I put it to Dato' Ambiga, why? Why are you preempting these reforms and taking it out on the street yet again? Don't get me wrong, I respect your right to go out on the street. That is a freedom that I will defend for you. But I do not agree with your cause. I do not agree with your cause because you are preempting it, you are prejudging it, and more importantly, you are misrepresenting the people why they are going to go out. Now, she gave some facts and figures, and I hope I don't have time initially to dispute them, but I'm going to dispute 1 or 2 and tell you that there has been a misrepresentation of facts and figures. Now, this is a flyer that Bersih Steering Committee 3.0 has published, has distributed around the world, and the flyer says Malaysian electoral fraud by numbers. If you look at the press statements that Dato' Ambiga has come up with, the steering committee, it's fraud. Fraud being perpetuated by the government. Fraud being perpetuated by the Election Commission. That is prejudicial. Fraud. To put into the perspectives of people that this election is already not clean and it's not fair. This is my problem. My problem is not with your perjuangan, your struggle to make sure that there's a clean election. My problem is misrepresentation. Now let's just take a few examples. 42,000. She mentioned this great big 42,000 figure that the Election Commission themselves has come forward to say these are dodgy voters. I see 42,051 to be exact. 42,000 here. Fraud. Fraud, yeah? It says fraud. 42,051 cases. Let me explain a little bit the history of these 42,051 cases of voters who are considered dodgy or dubious. Last year in September, at the Election Commission's own initiative, own resourcefulness, they asked Jabatan Pendaftaran Negara, or NRD, National Registration Department, go through the entire electoral list, 12.5 million people. Check those names for which you have some suspicion that they are inactive in your files, in the NRD files. So the NRD went back, they checked the 12.5 million people, they came back and said, actually we've got 42,051 voters, which we don't really know, we don't really have updated records for them. So these 42,051 voters were considered dodgy voters. Bersih will have you believe that they are fraudulent voters. If they were fraudulent voters, ladies and gentlemen, Dato' Ambiga, the EC would not have displayed them for 3 months. The EC displayed every single one of these 42,051 voters for 3 months, for everyone to see whether or not these voters are still alive. I remember in Parliament, Dato' Sri Anwar, the leader of the opposition, stood up when we were debating the Election Offences Amendment, and he said, these 42,000 voters are not even citizens of Malaysia. That is the spin that they'll have you believe. They're not even citizens of Malaysia. So I checked. As an MP, I did some research. I did my own research. I want to find out what is the situation, the actual status of these 42,051 voters. Ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you this. 42,051 voters listed by the NRD and the Election Commission as voters who have suspect history and status in the NRD list. Now, Dato' Ambiga said it's fraudulent voters. She said the EC must use its power under Section 25(2)(g) of the Election Regulations 2002. The Chief Registrar must strike these people out because they're fraudulent voters. This is the reason why you're going out on Saturday. Ladies and gentlemen, 3 months displayed. If within that 3 months, not a single soul from 42,051 voters came forward to say, hey, I'm still alive, I'd go with them. I'd say, Dato' Ambiga, you're right. Let's strike out these voters. These voters are fraudulent. If within 3 months, 42,051 voters, tak ada seorang pun keluar dan cakap saya masih lagi hidup ataupun bapak saya dah meninggal, then I will believe that those are fraudulent voters. But this is listed as fraudulent voters. Ladies and gentlemen, in that 3 months, 1,248 cases came forward, 55% of which are still alive. They came forward and they said, hang on a second, I'm still here. Hitam binti Taib came forward, 98 years old. Teo Siam Ngoh came forward, 97 years old. Chu Siu Beng came forward, 97 years old. more than 700 people came forward to say, I'm still alive. Their only mistake, their only crime is that they didn't update their IC. You see the JPN, the NRD, if you do not update your IC, if you do not change your IC from the old blue one with the Cap Jari, Persekutuan Tanah-Tanah Melayu, or even if you didn't change it from the one after that, the 12-digit, the one that's laminated, you are considered inactive in their files. These people, their only crime was they didn't update their IC. Yet Dato' Ambiga says they are fraudulent voters and we must strike them out of the electoral roll. Ladies and gentlemen, if the EC struck them out of the electoral roll, the Election Commission would have done something illegal and they would have done something against the Constitution of Malaysia, which is to deny these people their constitutional right to vote. And out of the 45%, ladies and gentlemen, those were the people who are legitimate voters. There were also 45% of the 1,248 that came forward that they say they passed away. And this also answers the allegation that there are people 100 years old who are still on the electoral list. For example, Min Kilan B. Panabengan passed away in 1993, 18 years ago, born in 1990. But the next of kin did not report it to NRD, and as a result, the name is still there. Ladies and gentlemen, you have to remember, to strike out a name, whether or not the name is 150 years old, you must report that death to NRD. Another example, Kasum binti Talib, they didn't report for 8 years. Only last year, at the end of last year, the excise come forward and say, my mother has passed away, can you take her off the list? So ladies and gentlemen, I come back to the point. Dato' Ambiga said, they are fraudulent voters. Fraud, that's why you must go out. But these 1,248 cases, I admit, they're not all 40,000, have come to prove that these people are still either alive or they existed as voters. And if you go with her argument that they are fraudulent voters, that you must strike it up and we must march, then you are actually putting your struggle on very, very shaky foundation. These are facts. These are facts. And ladies and gentlemen, there are many, many other cases which I will dispel throughout the night to show you that in fact there are perfectly legitimate reasons for all these anomalies which Dr. Kian Meng, which Bersih have come up with. But the only problem I have is, and I asked Dato' Ambiga once again, Dato' Ambiga, out of the 40,803 left, in this particular example, now that I've told you that 1,248 cases came forward, can you tell me with absolute certainty that these 40,803 are fraudulent cases? Or is it possible? No. Is it probable, because 1,248 came forward, that they are still legitimate voters, or that they were legitimate voters that passed away? They may be in the pendalaman, in the interior, their only crime was not to change their IC. So ladies and gentlemen, just one concrete example why the fundamental basis for which you, Dato' Ambiga, are telling people to go out on Saturday is not only untrue, but it's a misrepresentation of the facts if you look for it properly. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Khairy.
Yes. May I answer that?
Yes, 3 minutes, yeah?
Thank you. Right. I'll tell you where the fraud lies with this 42,000. It's with the lame excuse of the EC that they cannot do anything about it. That's not true. EC is busy removing and adding, let me tell you. Okay? And what they rely on, they say Rule 25(2)(g), which gives them the power to do it. Oh, we can't do it because it may violate the Constitution. So on the one hand, they violate the Constitution when they allow phantom voters and, illegal immigrants, etc. to be registered. Then when it comes to removing, they suddenly are coy and respectful of the Constitution. Now, let me tell you, under the law, Regulation 13 gives them the power, let me read it quickly, that they're supposed to revise the supplementary roll once in every 3 months. For the purpose of revising the supplementary roll and to determine whether a person is there is a procedure. They actually have to make either house to house or other inquiry, or he sends a notice and requiring information. And if he doesn't get information back within a specific period of time, he is entitled to strike out. Why are they not using that? Why are they hanging on and saying it's... And you notice they only talk about the 42,000. What about the 3 million? they can't do it. They're liberally doing it. Have you read cases of people who are... Is that it? No. Have you read cases of people who have voted and suddenly they're not on the roll anymore? How's that happening? How's that happening? Have you read cases of people overseas who never registered to vote and suddenly find their names on the list? Have you heard of those cases too? So what is the EC talking about? And I want an answer to all the other issues that have been raised by researchers in this area. It took 3 months to do that research. All those figures are formidable figures, and that's the tip of the iceberg. All I ask for is this. This is all I ask for. Put us in a room with the EC, and all MPs sit down, and then let us fight it out. We are ready to do that. Yesterday, we had a debate. And we invited the EC. Bersih was there. The EC didn't turn up. Probably short notice, to be fair. But they didn't turn up. It's a shame, because we would have thrashed it up yesterday. But that's what I asked for. Now, sorry. Am I done? Well, I
30 seconds.
to answer, because they've talked about fraud. I need to tell you about fraud. The PSC recommended a royal commission of inquiry into Sabah. What do you think that's about? That's about fraud. That's about phantom voters. Don't tell me there's no fraud.
Alright, thank you very much, Dato'. Just before you go ahead, I'd just like to remind the audience, please refrain yourself from clapping or cheering while the speaker is speaking. Right? It's one of those that is cutting time. It's cutting time for both of them. Alright, so, Khairy, sorry, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Dato' Ambiga. Let me just address, I think we have to disagree with this point, but let me just address why the EC will not use that power. Precisely because of those 1,248 cases which appeared suddenly, listen, which appeared as legitimate cases. And you can't dismiss that. You can't dismiss that. If you strike them off the list without even giving them a chance to come forward, and the EC, by the way, has given an assurance to continue to look for them. And one way of looking for them is also to allow them to vote, because many of these people have continued to vote. And it's just the only mistake that they've done. The only mistake that they've done is not updated the identity card. Now, let's go to some of your other concerns, okay? And I'll end by addressing your point about EC. Let's go to some of your other points. Now, this is based on your flyer. You say that 31,000 voters have been transferred from their constituencies. Now, that is the figure given by the opposition. I'm saying that when SPR did this study, 19,342 cases were transferred in a sense that their locality was corrected. I'll give you an example. Which addresses two issues. This is very crucial because it's mentioned in this flyer. The first is that 31,000 voters have been transferred out of 2008 state and parliamentary constituencies without their consent, including the incumbent Chief Minister of Selangor, who was transferred out of his own state, Tan Sri Khalid. Yeah? This particular case is very instructive. Tan Sri Khalid registered as a voter on the 1st of January 1985, using his then Petaling Jaya residence, Jalan 16/2, Petaling Jaya, which makes him a PJ Selatan voter in Don Bukit Gasing, if I'm not mistaken. In 2004, the SPR, the Election Commission, implemented a new system which is called the Electoral Geographic Information System. In normal speak, that's basically Google Earth, where they wanted to correct the locality. If you've been down Jalan Dato' Abu Bakar, from the Civil Service Golf Club, down to the Castel roundabout to PJ section 16, don't shake your head. You will know that all the houses on the right going towards PJ are Petaling Jaya. All the houses on the left, where University Malaya are Wilayah Persekutuan. You know why? Go on Google Earth tonight. The border is on Jalan Dato' Abu Bakar. Yang Amat Berhormat Tan Sri Khalid's house is on the left. Jalan 16/2 is on the left. When they computed it in 1985, they put it in, the clerk said Jalan 16/2 must be Petaling Jaya. But when you look at Google Earth, when they corrected it, he is in Wilayah Persekutuan. Now, I fault the EC for one thing, not for correcting the locality, but for not informing Tan Sri Khalid. Now, EC informed all the political parties in the relevant constituencies where there were corrections of locality, but they did not inform the voter. And we told the EC, that's crazy, you must inform the voter, which they're doing now. But ladies and gentlemen, this is not transferring of voters. This is looking on Google Earth and realizing the border is actually on the road, his house is in Wilayah Persekutuan. And coming back to the 3 million voters, ladies and gentlemen, if a man like the Menteri Besar of Selangor has not even changed his voting address, I can tell you for a fact that he doesn't live in Jalan 16/2. He lives in Shah Alam, Menteri Besar's residence. Before that, he lived in Bukit Utama. He is no longer a resident voter. He himself has moved up. If he himself has not bothered to change his address, what more regular movement?
Right, thank you very much. Right. I know. I thought because you're very eager, but we want questions from the audience, and that's something that you guys were also asking for. So let's start with the audience, and I think we have someone in the center. We have a custodian to pass the mic. You have 15 seconds, sir. Please introduce yourself, your occupation, and 15 seconds for question.
It seems to me that Khairy's argument is based on only one point about the 42,000.
No.
And he says that is the reason why we are going to march for Bersih free. That's rubbish. We're not going just for that. If had he been listening to Ambiga, he would have realized that the issue is much bigger than that. And that we are going to for Bersih free for what? Bigger. As for his point about Google Earth, my friend, okay. I would like to just get this point. How can he say that in terms of Google Earth, people get transferred out of the original country?
Alright, thank you.
My friend is from Damansarajaya, and now she's in Kuala Kangsar. How is that using Google Earth?
Thank you, Dinesh. I'm not saying that you are going out just because of the 42,000. I'm saying that you are going out based on a series of misrepresentation for which I don't have the time to go through one by one. I'm picking on certain cases. I picked on the 42,000. I picked on the 19,342 based on the reallocation of locality, correction of locality based on the Menteri Besar's case. I picked on the 3.1 million voters based on Menteri Besar himself not wanting to update his own address with SPR. So those are certain cases that I've taken. I can't go through every single one. But all I'm saying is that if these particular cases, there are also evidence of misrepresentation, what more all the other cases? I'm not saying, look, I'm not imputing bad faith on Dato' Ambiga. I have respect for her. I think that she believes in what she's doing, which is fine. But at the end of the day, come and talk. Now, your specific point about Google Earth, that's the fact of the matter. There has to be a border between Selangor and Wilayah Persekutuan. There has to be a border. If you look at a map, your case of Kuala Kangsar, you just raised it tonight. It's new evidence. It's not admissible in court. If you give me a chance to answer, to research, I'll find out. No, you can't pop out with new evidence. I'm addressing certain things that I've had a chance to look at. There must be a border between Wilayah and Selangor. And that's where the border is. If you don't believe me, go tonight and check Google Earth. Now, just wrapping up this point. My issue is very simple. These issues are very complex and very detailed, based on laws, regulations, and precedents. Now, Dato' Ambiga said, put us in a room with the SPR. Okay, the last time she was at SPR was November 2010. Oh, hang on a second. I know you wanted to see them after that, but after Bersih 2.0, no interaction at all. Confrontation. The only way you're talking to them is through press conferences, through on-campaign's presentation. There's 3 million. Let's sit down. Let's get together. You know, when the SPR came to Parliament 2 weeks ago to have a briefing for all members of Parliament, not just BN and Pakatan Rakyat. You know how many Pakatan Rakyat MPs showed up? 10 Pakatan Rakyat MPs showed up. That's how much they care about this. So, Dato' Ambiga, I know you are very disappointed with Pakatan Rakyat for hijacking Bersih today. I know you are very disappointed with Pakatan Rakyat MPs who were on the Parliamentary Select Committee, they didn't do anything. Your submission, Bersih's submission was 34 pages long. Azmin Ali's minority report was 3 pages long. So, come together with us. Let's go and see SPR. Let's go and see SPR. I don't care if you demonstrate on Saturday, that's your right. But come to SPR, I will be there. Let us look at the names, the numbers, IC numbers, and let's put an end to this once and for all.
Okay, thank you very much. Can I just address the audience? Right, guys, this is not an auction. This is a debate. So please, keep calm and let's be objective. Let's just go straight to the top. Your response to that?
Yes, quick one. The difference between you and me, YB, is that you believe what EC says, we don't. And a lot of people don't. And I gave you reasons for that. When I said put SPR in the same room, not to discuss anything, we have no confidence in them. We will debate it. We will debate it. That's what we're saying. All the MPs, in front of all the MPs, we'll put up our figures. We want EC to give answers. They can put up their figures. We will give answers. That's how I want to do it. And I think that's the best way to do it.
Can I ask one question? One question. I just want to rejoin it. It's not a point. I just want to ask a question from the sincerity of my heart. You say that you do not trust the Election Commission.
No.
You have been on record to say that they must resign. So, what is the point for you to ask to see the Election Commission?
Debate them. Debate them.
We want a solution. That's Ambiga, can I ask you a question? If there is an answer that the Election Commission gives, yang masuk akal, that boleh pakai lah, are you willing to accept that? Or are you willing to say that I do not accept anything that the Election Commission says?
What we are saying is we have queries, we want answers. To date, we have not got answers. Let me give you another reason why we're asking the EC to resign. On Thursday, last Thursday, alright, this piece of legislation was rushed through Parliament. This is after PSC and they talk about transparency, we are cleaning every day. This was rushed through Parliament. And this is the Election Offences Act. Now, they had put a few amendments through, but these are the two main ones. They withdrew 2 of them. The booth to be provided by Election Commission 26A1. The Election Commission shall provide the booth. Then you have a sub 2 and sub 3. Sub 2 and sub 3 allows for the election agents of a candidate to be present there. They have deleted that. That means in the EC booth, you are only going to have EC. Which means people who walk in, you won't be able to check. That's the idea of this. What are they fearing? And you know what the reasoning is? I read the answers. The reasoning is because there's too much problems. What problems? They couldn't say. Why did they do that? How can you not be suspicious? Why is it they don't want them to be checked? They have polling agents and counting agents in the polling center. They can't see from the distance that they're sitting. Which means your indelible ink also is of no use because you can't tell from that distance whether that person's finger is marked. Please explain to me why. And all these are recommendations of SPR. What I want to know is why didn't they tell the PSC that they were going to suggest this amendment? Why? Because PSC actually issued a map of the polling station. This is how it should be drawn. Shouldn't they have said actually we're going to move this amendment? No, they rushed it through on the last day of Parliament. One more reason, Section 9A, which was passed after the Likas case. If you know about the Likas case, which talked about phantom voters, that brave judge who came out and set aside the election because of 4,000 odd phantom voters in Sabah. After that, because the judge actually was very firm and very stern with the EC because he found there was fraud by the EC in registering those voters. After that, an amendment is passed in Parliament which disallows anyone from questioning the electoral roll. So which means we can't even go to court on it. You don't have an independent arbiter. Last sentence, no independent arbiter, which means we are at the mercy of the Election Commission. That's like making Nero fire chief.
Thank you very much, Dato'.
I'll answer in the answers later.
Okay, alright. Now we're going to ask another question from a member of the audience. I would like a question from this side.
Dato' Ambiga, my name is Shahul, I'm from Umno. I have a question for you. On April 2012, you mentioned that a meeting with the SPR is a waste of time. I would like to request that rather than sitting in Atara Merdeka, I wanted to just sit with the SPR and EC election commissions to map out the best things moving forward. Because from the last Bersih 2 to Bersih 3, there's been not much action being taken from their side to discuss the issues. No point talking to the media. You should sit down with them, put up a road plan, see how we can address the issue and make the country better and people can enjoy those benefits.
Thank you for the question, Charles. I think the point is this: because of all the evidence that we have seen, as far as we are concerned, this is going to be the dirtiest elections. That's our fear. All right, that's our fear. And yes, and we have good reasons for saying that. And at the end of the day, all we ask is, please guarantee that you will implement. Fulfilling for me in the English language means implement. Doesn't mean writing about it. It means you write and you implement. All we're asking, delay the elections. Please, delay the elections. Give us time. And we, July last year, we actually, civil society offered. We offered to sit in a non-partisan, in a group where both parties would be represented, all parties, political parties would be represented, as well as civil society. And we said, form an independent panel, and we will help clean up the electoral roll. If they had done that in July last year, it would be done by now. But can you see the reluctance of EC to have someone independent looking over their shoulder in relation to the electoral road? That is even the PSC recommendation they're not accepting. So this is what we fear, you see. So to me, talking to them is of no use. We want a new set of people who are not going to behave like civil servants. That's all we're asking for. And all we want is... That's why I'm saying, we want what you want. And we are happy to sit with all the MPs, Sit, hear us out, hear the figures that we put up, hear our experts. It's not from me, I'm quoting figures from experts. We have a mapping expert who talks about this. That's why we don't know what map EC is using. Google map, this map, that map. He says there's a confusion which map they're using. And by the way, I understand Tan Sri Khalid was paying rates to PJ. So I don't know how he became a KL, this is common sense, a KL constituency, that's the other thing. So much as I understand, everybody wants us to talk, I'm telling you, it's not going to work, not with this EC, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I came here expecting a spirit of cooperation and reasonable. No, seriously. Because ultimately, if Dato' Ambiga, if you have already said we cannot work with the EC, we want this EC to resign, we cannot cooperate with this EC, we don't trust this EC, then it's a foregone conclusion. You've already put it front and center that this election is going to be dirty, that is going to be beyond repair. That's why you come up with all these figures. And even when I come forward to give you arguments which I've gotten from the Election Commission themselves, as an MP I asked them, you might ask how come he's talking about, I asked them. Just like every other MP was allowed to ask them, I actually did my homework, I went back and asked them, but you cannot even accept that. That's my problem. The issue of the map, also you can't accept that Jalan Dato' Abu Bakar is the border between Wilayah and Selangor. Even that you reject. That's extremely unreasonable. And if you want to really go down to detail one by one, you say, you leave it to the experts. Okay. On Kalmeng said, amongst other things, he said there were new army and postal voters who are above the recruitment age, which is 30 years old. Initially I thought these were people who were reservists, who joined the regular army, and they are allowed to join over 30 years old, but they were not. They were in the latest role. So I did my check. What happened was, these army officers previously had an IC, a normal civilian IC, but they never informed SPR that they had received a military IC. That's why they were double registered on the electoral roll, and they have to be taken out. You see, the burden of proof in our electoral system is that we need to inform the EC. If you passed away, your next of kin has to inform the EC. If you change address, you have to inform the EC. Now, this is something that we can talk in the long term, but that is protecting the constitutional right of voters so they're not stricken off. That's the issue. If you talk, Ong Tian Meng, again, you referred to Ong Tian Meng, he said there are now wives of police officers registered as postal voters. He said this is against the law because only wives of army personnel are allowed to be registered as postal voters. Tiba-tiba dia cari, dia kata ada wives of police officers registered as postal voters. I checked. I said, what are these cases of wives of police personnel registered as postal voters? This is part of the fraud that she claims is perpetuated by the EC. These are all spouses of a particular police unit called PGA, Pasukan Gerakan Am. If anyone knows about the police, PGA is an infantry unit for the police. They are a paramilitary unit. Only wives of the PGA who serve like the army, who serve at the border, who serve in Kelantan, who serve in Grid, who serve in Kedah are given the right to register as postal voters. I give you that example. Also, you cannot accept, say no, this is illegal. But under the regulation, they are allowed to register whoever they deem fit as postal voters. Not all spouses of police personnel, but in this case, police personnel from the PGA, who are like the army. They are sent to camps to the border. They are sent into the hutan. Therefore, they are given the same privilege as army personnel's wives. So there's an explanation. If I explain like that, a lot of you say, okay, but the problem is, we come back to the fundamental problem, is that you don't trust the EC. And I'm having a tough time trusting you tonight. Because there's nothing that I can say to bring you to the table and not debate the EC, that's all. I'm asking you to come and talk to them so that we can get to the bottom of all these issues.
What we are prepared to do is come and talk to all the MPs. We will come and explain our side. You see, if only EC had invited us to your taklimat that they had with the MPs the other day, we would have gone. And we would have raised all these issues. But there's no point talking to an EC. We've done it before. And even these issues were raised with the... sorry, did I cut you?
No, you cut me off.
Go ahead. Sorry, go ahead. Go ahead.
No, and likewise, you said there's no point talking to the EC. Likewise, if you put yourself in the shoes of the EC, there's no point talking to you. Every time you have a press conference, you say, resign. I'm here as a man of peace tonight. You and the Election Commission. I can call the other MPs. We don't need all the MPs there. I can call Azmin, I can call Anthony, I can call Hatta, who are part of the Pakatan Rakyat Parliamentary Select Committee. We sit down and we go through each and every one, because the problem here tonight, ladies and gentlemen, we are talking in cross purposes. She has a PC saying 300,000. Suddenly inflation, maybe 3.1 million voters. The EC explains she doesn't want to listen. So let's get to the bottom of this. There is enough time. There's enough time for the next general elections.
Can I ask if you are giving a guarantee that all the demands of Bersih which are contained in the PSC will be implemented before the 13th general elections? That's all we want to hear. Is that what you're saying?
That's all.
May not be in your hands. I know.
That's all. I know lah. You look down on me. I'm going to cheat. But I came here to talk to you. And although it's beyond my powers, but I give you my assurance that if you are asking for a meeting with cross-MP representation, with the Election Commission, I will try my best to make it. And that is not even conditional on condition that you cancel Saturday's match.
Okay.
I can assure you it will not be cancelled.
Alright, speakers, I have to stop you there. We're going to go for the next question, yeah? A question from that side, please. Can we have a custodian with the interested audience at the very end? Your name, occupation, 15 seconds.
Okay, my name is Fu. I'm staying in Kota Damansara, and this question is put forward to Khairy Jamaluddin. Okay, basically as a representative of the government, you see all these things that is happening, Bersih and the free fair election, we are asking for. And after all this, the most pertinent question in everybody's mind and in the whole nation's mind in the whole world's mind is, will the BN government, in the event they are going to lose the election, will there be a peaceful transition? This is that question which is very pertinent, and I think...
Thank you, Mr. Tu. Thank you very much. Alright guys, let's sit down, calm down. Maybe that question is posed to you at your own time.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Look, we all play by the rules. We all play by the rules. And if we lose an election, then we lose an election. Just as we handed over Pulau Pinang in 2008, just as we handed over Selangor in 2008, just as we hand over Kelantan every single election, just as we handed over Kedah in 2008, just as we handed over Perak for a while in 2008. If we lose, we lose. I can assure you that as far as I'm concerned, again, this is probably way above my pay grade. I can give you an assurance that we are committed to make sure that Malaysia is a respected democracy. If we lose, we lose. We are not going to hang on to power. There's no General Musharraf here, pardon me, Pakistanis. There's no instance of a coup here. The army has been completely divorced from politics in Malaysia, unlike in Thailand, unlike in Singapore, unlike in Indonesia. There is absolutely no threat of that. The guarantee as far as it comes from Ketua Pemuda is that if we lose, na'udzubillah, if we lose.
Thank you, look, questions in relation to the debate, yeah? So we have one from the center, you can just hold for a bit. Just one from the center. 15 seconds, ma'am. Could you have a custodian running over there? 15 seconds. Something related to electoral reform.
I'm Irene, and the question is to Khairy. Yes. One is, Bersih is walking not because of Ambiga, but because the Rakyat has lost confidence of the Election Commission. Two, I want to know whether Election Act amendments were passed, stripped of transparency and accountability representation by the candidates, both candidates. Did you vote for it or against it?
Alright, thank you, ma'am. I get the question for yourself.
Sorry, what was the first point again? Oh, because you walk because of Rakyat, not because of Ambiga. All of us were brought to do things in the name of the Rakyat. I know some people will say, how can you say you represent the Rakyat when, 20,000, 50,000 people go out for Bersih? That's what some people will say. I'm not going to say that. I'm going to say that everybody purports to speak on behalf of the Rakyat. So do I. I have an elected mandate for the time being from the people of Rembau to speak on behalf of the Rakyat. So I'm not going to question. I'm not saying that you're going out there because of Ambiga. I trust that most of you who go out there have good intentions. I'm just saying that don't perpetuate misrepresentation like this, which I've demonstrated tonight. That's the first thing. Second thing, when it comes to the Election Amendment Act, again, this comes back to the Ambiga. Jumps the gun. Prejudicial. You had a press conference the next day after the Election Amendment Offences Act was passed. And you jumped the gun saying that one of the amendments that were passed was that the entry and exit of the polling agents and counting agents are now at the sole discretion of the SPR. She didn't even check. We pulled that amendment because even we said that that's not right. She later apologized. But this is the point of jumping the gun. This is, no, hold on. I will answer the question. I will answer the question. Secondly, coming to another point that she made. This is a very crucial point. She said dirty politics will be perpetuated because there is an amendment in the Election Offences Act that takes out the need for you to publish the printer's name for posters and also for banners. That's true, Dr. Ambiga? She said because of that akan ada banyak poster dan banner yang berunsur fitnah, defamatory, etc., etc. I've contested in one general election. I've led Pemuda Barisan Nasional in more than 20 by-elections. I can tell you for a fact, I swear on my life, I have never seen one poster which is defamatory. So and so is gay, so and so is corrupt. I've never seen on that poster, printed by Barisan Nasional, printed by Pakatan Rakyat. Defamatory posters do not carry printing the address and also the name of the publishers. And to answer the charge that there's going to be dirty politics, the SPR has increased its personnel for the next general elections to make sure if any of these posters go up, they come down. And it applies to us as well. Not just Pakatan Rakyat, but there have been many, many posters, even in my constituencies, which said that if they are defamatory, they have to come down. Now to answer your question, Irene, did I vote? Yes, I voted for the amendment.
May I respond? As to the question of the posters, if it is so inconsequential, why the amendment? Why did they make that amendment? That's my question, and why did you vote for it? You clearly did. I accept, actually, people want to defame, they defame anyway. It's happening right now. Now, the thing about the increase in EC staff, let me give you another angle to that. There is 100,000 increase in EC staff, from 140,000 to 240,000. That's another 100,000 postal votes. Just to give you another angle to that.
Okay, let me just give one quick rejoinder to that. You see, Dato' Ambiga is very clever. She says an increase in 100,000 EC staff means an increase in 100,000 postal voters. Not all EC staff are postal voters. In fact, it is the express policy of SPR that they send their staff where possible to the place where they vote. Only a minority choose to be postal voters. Not 100,000 are going to be postal voters. Most of them will be sent to where they are actually going to vote, in their IC and in the electoral roll. The problem is she says 100,000 means 100,000 postal voters. That's my point. Please do not misrepresent Dato' Ambiga. They do not automatically become postal voters. They have a choice. They have a choice to become postal voters or not.
Alright, thank you very much, Wayne. Doctor, you want to respond to that?
Look, you know...
Come on.
Ladies and gentlemen, audiences, please respect the speakers. Okay? Thank you very much.
I have held my counsel for the number of times you've used the word misrepresentation on me. I haven't used it on you. I was talking about the EC. And unfortunately, you believe everything the EC said. Now, the 100,000 increase, what we were talking about is, we will wait and see. We'll wait and see the increase in the postal votes in the next general election. Let's see. Because what they should be doing, for the reasons that I have said, they should be reducing postal votes. Because they are for sale, they're literally up for sale. So I accept your point. Let's wait and see what happens in the next general elections, whether there's going to be a spike in postal votes or not. Please explain the spike in Nurul's constituency, for example. Look at the spike, the sudden spike, and I think she has made an issue with it. It's not going to change. So where are these postal votes going to be? Where we'll have to keep an eye on it. I can bet you bottom dollar it will be in constituencies where the margins are narrow. And in fact, the facts and figures will come up as we speak. But what I'm trying to say is, we don't want to see that happening and then find out about it after the election.
Alright,
I give you that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Alright, Dato', thank you very much. Alright, the next question from the audience, from this side. We have someone right in the middle, in the front.
Hello, my name is Liz Howard Moore. I'm a writer and filmmaker based in London. So obviously my topic of interest is the right of Malaysians living abroad to vote. And I would like to understand the position that both parties arrive at in this matter. Thank you.
Right, thank you very much. Dato'?
Yes. Of course, as far as we are concerned, the Constitution provides that you have a right to vote. So as far as we are concerned, it is up to the government to make it happen. It has been a long-standing problem, and I'm aware that the My Overseas Voter group from London actually sends proposals to the PSC as to how it can happen. Our quarrel with the PSC report in this regard is that they actually said that due to logistic problems, they're not going to force the EC to make provisions for you all to vote overseas. And we have a quarrel with that because we think it can be done. So do the overseas voters. And what they said to the EC is, you go away, we leave it alone for the time being, you go away and you think up of conditions. Because the EC said, look, we must have conditions a person has to come back to the country once in 5 years, etc., before they are eligible to vote. There are many jurisdictions who have that. There's nothing wrong with that. But right now, there are no conditions. And yet the government is not taking any steps to ensure that these voters overseas are enfranchised. That's our quarrel with the PSC report.
Which I agree with the principle of allowing overseas Malaysians to have the vote as per the PSC recommendation. I think we are in agreement, Dr. Ambiga and myself. I disagree with her once again when she says that nothing is being done to this regard. There is a time-bound recommendation in the PSC report which says that the Election Commission must study and must recommend for implementation within 3 months after consultation with other agencies. What are the other agencies? Of course, Wisma Putra, Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and also JPN to make sure that the necessary systems are in place for us to have overseas voting. She says nothing is taking place. I've just checked with the SPR. Have they already started discussions with the Ministry of Foreign Affairs? They have. There is some issue of logistics that needs to be considered. It's not a petty issue. They are deciding whether or not they open one polling station at our High Commission in London, which is extremely small, in Belgrave Square, whether or not they rent out a hall, whether or not they give postal votes to Malaysians overseas. If they give postal votes to Malaysians overseas, there has to be a process of registration, because many Malaysians who live overseas do not register with our Perwakilan, do not register with our embassies, do not register with our High Commission. These are the logistical issues. They're not logistical issues made up and chucked around like that. These are serious issues that need to be dealt with. But we have received positive feedback from SPR that the discussions are in advanced stage and that they are looking to put a paper forward to make sure that this can be implemented as soon as possible. Again, if you ask the SPR, they will give you this answer. If you don't want to talk to them and ask them to resign, you will never reach this conclusion.
May I respond to that?
Yes.
Number one, will it be done before, again, I'm sounding like a broken record, will it be done before the 13th general elections? If you can't do it, you delay the elections until you get the logistics in order. And why has it taken, we've had overseas Malaysians for years. Why are we only now looking at logistics? That's the other issue. So, to me, it doesn't cut eyes, actually, I'm sorry. Because all this back and forth and study and thesis and academic exercises don't mean anything unless you put it in practice. These people want to vote and we must enfranchise them.
My only rejoinder is that the recommendation is time-bound, 3 months. You keep on saying, do it before the elections, delay the elections. As much as you want me to be the Prime Minister, I'm not the Prime Minister. I can't tell you when the election is going to be, but the Prime Minister has committed himself again and again to a free and fair election. I think we should give him that chance to show and prove himself.
Can I just, very quick, sorry, I have to say this. Two of the recommendations in the interim report of the PSC specifically said before the 13th general elections. The indelible ink and one more. Alright? So they thought about it. They said before the 13th general elections. What does that mean? They don't know when the elections are either. Why is it you can say that in relation to one recommendation and not the other? That's my question.
No, just quick, 1 minute, 30 seconds. Let's think about this logically. Indelible ink, it's always been a suggestion. It's a suggestion that could be implemented immediately because it was always on the table. Overseas votes only now being considered. It needs some time to discuss with all the different embassies and high commission that we have all across the world. That's why it's not apple and apple comparison.
Alright, thank you very much, speakers. We'll go to the audience back again. Question, I promised someone from the center. No? No question? Change your mind. So let's go to the person in front. Name, occupation, 15 seconds, I'll hold the mic.
I'm Dr. Wong Chin-Hua from Bersih. My question is to YB Khairy. Would you agree with me that the Constitution, 13th schedule in the Federal Constitution provides that all constituencies have, between the same state, have to be approximately equal, except that rural constituency can be larger? Yes? That's part of the other questions.
No, just one question.
No, that you can't lay out the premise. How can I ask the question? My question is, after 2003, the constituency redelineation, you had Baling with 74,698 voters, while Alostar having 57,313 voters, both in the state of Kedah. So Khairy, would you agree with me that the Election Commission has acted against the Constitution, or you think that Baling is more urban than Alostar? Thank you.
Alright, thank you very much. Khairy, I'm going to give you extra time to answer this.
Okay, this is a question of basically a question of gerrymandering and delimitation. Now, I understand Chin Huat's point that we should try and give more equitable spread of seats based on population. That's something that I can agree with in principle. But there are outlier cases which there's nothing you can do about. Putrajaya, if I'm not mistaken, has a voting population of about 20 to 30,000, okay? There's nothing that you can do about Putrajaya. It's going to be 25, 30,000. You can't slice it with any other constituency because it's a federal territory surrounded by Selangor. Okay, that's an outlier. Fine, that's an outlier. People ask, what about the other cases? And I hear Chin Huat's point that there's no reason why Baling should be 95,000. You should break it up. And I think Baling should be broken up. But the point is, if you're going to change everything to suit the constitution, and Chin Huat, if you read the Parliamentary Select Committee report and the submissions made by everybody, you would know that there's an added complication to that. Our friends from Sabah and Sarawak have said that based on the Malaysia Agreement 1963 and the proceedings of the Cobalt Commission report prior to them joining Malaysia, there was an agreement that Sabah, Sarawak and Singapore were given 1/3 of the parliamentary seats. Singapore is no longer in the federation. But the Sabahans and the Sarawakians are saying they deserve 33% of the parliamentary seats. Today, Sabah and Sarawak has 25%, if I'm not mistaken, of parliamentary seats. So if we are to give Sabah and Sarawak more parliamentary seats, of course, we're going to have to create more rural constituencies. Sabah and Sarawak do not have high density population in urban areas other than Kuching and maybe go to Kinabalu. But if we go with that, then definitely there will be cases where constituencies are created which are, according to you, in violation of that particular schedule in the Malaysian constitution. Hang on, I'm not finished yet. I know. Okay? So when you look at delimitation after this general election, you have to take into consideration not just making sure that the urban and rural votes have the same weightage, but also certain claims that come from Sabah and Sarawak that say, hey, hang on a second, we want 33%. That was part of the Malaysia Agreement, which you have not honored until today. If you do that, then that's in direct contradiction with your principle.
May I comment?
Yes.
Very shortly. I think this is one of the long-term amendments. This is not something we're saying has to be done before the 13 general elections. But let me give you a number that puts it in perspective. And we think the cause is malapportionment or gerrymandering, stroke gerrymandering. And it's this, that for the Barisan National Government to get a simple majority in Parliament, it only needs to win 17% of the popular vote. So that shows you the lopsidedness. So I think we have to do something about the delimitation. There's no doubt about that. And I think principles under the Federal Constitution are clear, and there's a reason for it. The reason why they say it has to tend towards equality is so that your vote has got the same value as my vote. It's not right that your vote is worth 4 or 5 times my vote. It's as simple as that. From a voter point of view, to be fair to me, to be fair to you, it has to tend towards equality.
Ladies and gentlemen, we have a first past the post system, which means that the popular vote does not necessarily correlate with the parliamentary majority. In the UK, the Conservatives got 36% of the vote, but won 47% of parliamentary seats. In Turkey, Erdogan won 59% of the seats based on 49% of the popular votes. In America, Electoral College, a president who did not win the popular vote became president because of the Electoral College system. I'm not saying that 2 wrongs make a right. I'm saying exactly that we must go towards a reform, but this is not peculiar to Malaysia. It is a symptom and it is a function of a first past the post system. What I'm suggesting tonight, Ambiga, is that we take the power out from the EC, from the SPR, for delimitation. We form an independent boundaries commission, like they have in the United Kingdom, to look at delimitation after the elections and to make sure that this principle is adhered to as much as possible, taking into consideration Sabah and Sarawak factors. I think that's my suggestion to try.
Alright, thank you very much, Khairy. Now, I'm going to suspend a bit the involvement of the audience because you've been misbehaving. And I'm going to ask a question, and this comes from the organizer and to you, Dato' Ambiga. A spike in Lembah Pantai doesn't necessarily mean they are going to vote for Barisan Nasional, as Raja Nong Chek had told the Malay Mail that even he's worried. Your comments on that?
Alright, let me tell you, postal votes is one thing. Let me tell you about what happened in Lembah Pantai 2 or 3 weeks ago, maybe a month ago. When Nurul Izzah had her election workers go around to check her roll, the electoral roll, they were arrested twice. 1 week and the week after that. All they were doing was doing what PC should be doing. Going, checking, how many people in a house, because they found more than 50 or whatever names in one house. So they went around to check. Both times, both weekends, they were arrested. They were stopped from doing that check. What does that tell you? What does it tell you when we have, for the first time in Malaysia, I haven't seen it and it's very, very sad. What does it tell you when you have political violence? What does it tell you about what's happening? Is there a sense of desperation? And when people are so desperate, how far will they go? There is a general feeling, and which is why, and I know I'm shifting from the topic, I'm not answering your question, but I think it's important. I have actually made a call to both the opposition leader and the Prime Minister. Come together on this issue. Let it be a bipartisan approach to political violence. Both must come up with a statement condemning it. Because that shows statesmanship for me. And actually my problem here is that we have very few statesmen. You have people who attack each other personally and carry on in this fashion, and by the way, half of us don't even like reading the newspapers. But this political violence, let us all condemn it together. It cannot be right. This is not the Malaysia that we envision. But I know I didn't answer that question, but...
No quarrel.
Can you pass the message?
Dato' Ambiga has single-handedly demoted me to an office boy tonight.
Alright. Now we go back to the audience. Alright. From the center, can I have a custodian running with the mic? Please hold the mic. Hold tight. 15 seconds.
Sorry, my question is towards Khairy. There seems to be skepticism towards elections, and particularly the refusal of the authorities to exercise their powers, rightfully pointed out by Ambiga, to correct these lackings. Just now you mentioned the 42,051 dodgy can't be found voters. And Ambiga mentioned, you could knock on their doors, you could provide notice. And as I understand, in litigation, we do it all the time. In bankruptcy proceedings, we do it all the time. There's a cut-off point from knocking on the door to pasting to newspaper adverts. And you have said that would be unconstitutional. So my question is, what would be your cut-off point at striking out these missing voters? And what would be your alternative? Or what would be the means of providing notification or ascertaining the existence of these voters?
That's a good question. And thank you for being proactive and constructive on the matter. Obviously, we can't leave it forever. But the point is that they cannot be struck off simply because they are deemed to be inactive in NRD. Now, what happened at the end of last year was just a public display of 3 months. What the EC is going to do after this, I'm told, is to actually go and try and find them. Now, the problem lies here. The problem is sometimes the address that they have completely outdated. If they've not updated their IC for 20 years, there's a very good chance that they don't live there anymore. Some of these people pass away, they don't have a next of kin, nobody to report their death. So there's nothing that you can do, and these are the outliers. I'm telling you that what Ambiga says is the tip of the iceberg, which is symptomatic of fraud. I'm telling you that these are outliers, which are actually represents the exception to the list. And I think we can look at these 42,000 again. We can try and send out all government agencies, and incidentally, the 1,200 people that were found, you know how they were found? Some of them were found. They were found when the government announced that they were going to give 500 ringgit to people who had incomes below 3,000 per household. And suddenly all these people came out. They never bothered to update their IC, but the moment they heard they're going to get 500 ringgit, they came forward. And that's how a lot of these people were found. Maybe we have to do another round of that, or maybe, make decisions. But maybe there are other ways for us to find this. I come back to my original point to you, sir, is that we cannot strike them out. The example of the 1,200 has demonstrated that these people exist. When Anwar stood up in Parliament and he said, they are not even citizens of this country, I asked JPM, they said, do you have records for them? They said, yes, we have records for them. Tapi IC lama yang pakai 7 digit, itu saja. So I think we have to be more aggressive to find them, and we have to try and figure out a way that is not unconstitutional to strike them off. But my fundamental point is that these are the exceptions, these are outliers. We have shown that some of them are legitimate voters.
Can I respond? Sorry, I completely disagree. As a lawyer, you know about substituted service, right? You can't serve, you go for substituted service. So forever and evermore, you don't keep on trying to serve for 30 years. There's specific provision here under the rules, Regulation 13, just to let you know. What they do is, you give a notice, they send a notice in writing, requiring more information to whatever address is stated. Then, if that person fails to give such information within a particular period of time, then they can exercise whatever rights they have. So, they have the powers under this. It doesn't violate the Constitution. And I know they are giving these excuses. It's not true. These regulations are made by them. Okay? This is to make their lives easier. And let me tell you, they use it liberally for other reasons. So why are they so coy and reticent about using it with these 42,000? And also, let's not get stuck in a hole about 42,000. There's 3 million that are unanswered. Okay?
Yeah, okay. I think I don't want to be stuck on 42,000 either. But my point is very simple. My point is, you may disagree, but striking somebody off the electoral roll, which is their constitutional right, is different from serving a summons on somebody. That's not a good comparison. This is taking somebody's right away that is enshrined in the Constitution. Of course, they have to apply a certain discretion and certain apprehension before they strike them out, even if you say that they have the right. And let's go to some of the other examples. You say 3 million. I've addressed the fact that a lot of Malaysians do not vote where they reside, including the Menteri Besar of Selangor. What more 3 million other people? What more 3 million other people who didn't bother to change their address with the SPR. Now, let me go through 1 or 2 other examples because I think we're short of time. But I just want to say that this is just not the tip of the iceberg. These are things with explanation. Minority Report, that Ambiga said, 15,855 people on the roll who are registered, showing that they are different gender than listed by the Election Commission. They're not listed as different gender. It doesn't say 15,000 people, dia nama lelaki, dia muka lelaki, tapi ditulis itu perempuan. Most of these cases are because the last digit does not correspond to the gender. Odd for male and even for female. I asked JPM, I said, is it gazetted by law that odd is male and even is female? No, it's just a system. It's just a system, and of which there were probably 15,000 mistaken entries which were not corrected. Listen, 15,000 entries which were not corrected. Out of millions of Malaysians, it is highly possible that the 15,000 who were not corrected and given the wrong last digit, which is not even gazetted by law. I checked. I asked my assistant, I said, can you research and do some research on this? He said, I don't have to do research. I was one of them. Hasbullah, I think he said. Hasbullah, when he got his IC, it was Hasbullah binti Hasim. But atas semangat kejantanan dia pergi, he corrected. people don't even know that the odd number is male, the even number is female. Some people don't know. And it's highly likely that 15,000 people don't even know that odd is male and even is female.
All right, if I can just do a short response.
1 minute,
One minute. Don't look down on these figures, okay? Don't look down on this research. Don't sneer at it. Or we are the rakyat. We expect our MPs to look into all the issues that we raise. Number one. Number two, the 3 million, I have to answer this, and I won't use the word misrepresentation like my worthy opponent has been liberally using. The 3 million, be careful, it's not about people who have moved and not changed their address. It is about people who have an address on the IC and are voting somewhere else. That is critical. That means they're not voting in the constituency according to their IC. Because a lot of people move away when they move from kampung to city or vice versa. And what happens? They keep that address. Voting time, they go back because that's their residential home or their family home. This 3 million is not there. And who picked it up? JPN picked it up in 2002. 10 years later, it's still there. Why?
All right, I have to stop both speakers there. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, I'm sorry, no more questions from the audience. We have 10 minutes left. So what we're going to do right now is I'm going to give 5 minutes each to both speakers to wrap up and make their final stand in today's debate. So I'm going to start the closing remark with YB Khairy.
Ladies and gentlemen, first of all, I'd like to thank the organizers, but more than that, I would like to thank Ambiga Sreenevasan for having this open debate. I think the one important takeaway, which all of us can agree, in fact, in this room, is that debate is a part of our democratic culture and we should enjoy it. Secondly, I won't use the word misrepresent anymore. I've used it liberally. All I'm saying is that, by all means, on Saturday, if you like, go out. The venue, Dataran Merdeka, we've offered Stadium Merdeka. That was where you wanted to have it last year. I don't know why it's different this year. Dato' Ambiga, it's not about Dataran Merdeka. It's about free and fair elections. Give in a little bit. Go to Stadium Merdeka. Nothing wrong with that. But anyway, coming back to the point. There is an impasse here tonight. The impasse is she doesn't trust the election commission. I can understand that. But all I'm saying is that if all the MPs are present, not all the MPs, very difficult to get all the MPs present, but we have a decent number from Barisan Nasional, from Pakatan Rakyat present, I ask you tonight, I ask you as a Malaysian tonight, not as a member of parliament, as a Malaysian, to another Malaysian, let us go to the election commission, let us look at the cases one by one, let us sit down and get your answers from the election commission. No more press conferences, no more cross purposes, no more shouting at each other. Every Malaysian wants a free and fair election. Please be reasonable. I offer my hand in friendship to you tonight. Let's go. Let's get this out.
Right, thank you very much. Dato'?
Yes, I disagree every Malaysian wants a free and fair election. Many Malaysians do, yes. There are many who don't. Now, but I accept, I'm happy to have a discussion. I'm happy to have a discussion as you suggested, but I would like the members of parliament there, because I actually think if you saw some of these things, you will understand what it is we're trying to say, because it's frustrating, because you're all only listening to the EC. You're not hearing civil society, you're not hearing us out. And that's where we find the problem. So, fine. With you on that. In fact, I thought that's what I suggested. Maybe I suggested a debate. With you on that. Now, the issue about... Sorry, I have to answer this question about Dataran Merdeka and Stadium Merdeka. The offer for Dataran Merdeka was made by the Dato' Bandar today. That's 2 days before the event. The only reason we said it's impossible for us to change is because it will cause a mess. You will have people in Dataran Merdeka and people in Stadium Merdeka. So that's the reason, right? Now, the other thing is this, finally. Look, at the end of the day, I think we expect a lot from our MPs. I'm not an MP, alright? But when you're an MP, you stand in a very different position. You have to be open-minded. You have to be open-minded and not defend the indefensible. And when we criticize EC, if you are asking for explanation, have us both there. Have us there so that we can explain what we mean. Have them there so that they can respond. So I agree with you. I think that's where we can go, certainly. But ultimately, the question still comes back to this. Are you going to, is the government, and which is why my answer to the question, has the government done enough, has to be no. Because until there is that commitment, and we're only asking for the 8 demands. The PSC report, we actually agreed with quite a few things. We're just asking for commitment, delay the elections the way they did in Bangladesh. They delayed it for 1 year to clean up the electoral rolls. They spent millions doing it. Delay, clean up the electoral rolls, fulfill these basic demands. No one can dispute these demands. Fulfill it. Give us that commitment. That is all we're asking for. And till to date, we haven't received that commitment from anyone. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Dr. Ambiga. Thank you very much for the Khairy. You may cross the floor and shake hands. Well, thank you both speakers. Please be seated. And I pass the session back to
Ladies and gentlemen, regardless of whichever side of the fence you're on, let's give a big hand to the speakers tonight. And now, we'd like to call upon Dr. Khairy Jamaluddin of UCSI University to present a token of appreciation to our speakers tonight. Dr. Khairy Jamaluddin. Ladies and gentlemen, please remain seated for the further proceedings, please. Ladies and gentlemen, please take a seat while we continue further. Khairy Khairy, Dr. Ambiga, Dr. Khairy Jamaluddin for UCSI University. And we'd also like to invite Dr. Siu Kawai, Retail Group CEO, to present tokens of appreciation from the Malay Mail. A big hand, please, Dr. Siu Kawai.
This debate has started, this debate series. I was delighted to spar with Khairy. We be tough, we be robust, but that's what debates are about. Otherwise it will just be a speech. And I think important is that there was a very frank exchange of views. And that's the only way to start making good things happen. So I would like to say thank Khairy, who were formidable adversary, and maybe we should do this again.
Thank you very much to Malay Mail, to Dr. Ambiga. It's very important for us to have this debate so that Malaysians can understand the precise nature of the disagreements. This is not just 8 points which are very general. These are very specific points which refer to very specific areas of discrepancies or suspected discrepancies. I've tried to present tonight some of the explanation, not trying to be a mouthpiece of EC, but to present the other point of view, which I accept, because some of these explanations are logical and can be accepted. The only thing that I can take away tonight is that I asked Dr. Ambiga to engage with the Election Commission. Don't be on a confrontational warpath, but engage with the Election Commission so that we can try to resolve the main item. I think the other items are very important, but the main cause is the electoral rule. And that's something that we need some clarity And even if the Ambiga will not agree at the end of engaging with the EC, at least Malaysians will understand why these so-called discrepancies take place. And I've attempted to answer some of them, didn't have time to address all of them, but as you could gather from my presentation and Ambiga's presentation, clearly there are areas for which we need to sit down with the Election Commission and ask them for further details.